Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well, and today, my friends, we're back with a land battle showdown. It's going to be Tzeentch versus Grand Cathay, myself on Tzeentch with an Exalted Lore of Change of Metal for the nice bombardment spells, facing off against Miao Yang and Grand Cathay. So I ended up running into another tournament player here on the quick battles, which of course is the glorious slot machine we all know now. You either get domination or land battles. That is something that I think is going to change. It's so unpopular, I can't see that staying around. I would be very, very shocked. But nonetheless, the slot machine roulette did give us a land battle here. So we're facing off against Cathay, and like I said, this is patch 1.3. So units can stack and shoot. You can see my opponent here is very excited to try that. So he does have the Iron Hail Gunners on top of the Peasant Spears. Now, as far as my build goes, we do have the Big Chicken up in the sky. Metal Casters are very good for punishing blobs. You have the Searing Doom, which of course does a lot of damage. We do also have the Gehenna's Golden Hounds. So I have two abilities that if he is stacking missiles, and I was really expecting this. You know, I had been running into a lot of players on ladder. This was the first kind of higher level player I had run into in my testing phase. But in general, I was running into a lot of newer players who were just kind of trying to abuse that mechanic, and they were just getting absolutely destroyed by these bombardment spells, right? It just gets you so much value and really punishes the blob. And kind of my ultimate opinion on it is I don't think that blobbing missiles is going to be like super good in multiplayer. I think at the best case scenario, it's going to be more of like a niche thing, maybe for like ogre kingdoms. It's more problematic in land battles too. Like for example, if you were playing like ogres, you could like sit up against the back of the wall, have like a bunch of lead belchers on top of your units, and then just be shooting a corn army and corner camping. Like it has a lot of toxic implications for land battles, but for domination, it's not that big of a deal. And you know, most factions that have shooting aren't going to have to worry. It's really more of an issue for like Khorne and Nurgle, but even still, like, it's really just kind of ogres. Like, if you try and have a blob against Nurgle, you're going to get hit with Stream of Corruption. Khorne can use Furies to target you. Granted, it's not always the most effective thing, but overall, it's been more of a punishing thing. When people blob their units, they end up losing. In the big tournament we had to kind of test that, we had the top players in the world, essentially, playing it out and juking it out in a domination tournament, and I think like a good 80% of the time, the people who like stacked their units and tried to abuse that mechanic ended up losing. So here in the front, we do have the blues and pinks. Now, you might be wondering why I have all this like kind of non-armor piercing shooting against Cathay. Well, I was expecting Iron Hail Gunners. They only have 30 armor, and on top of that, the crossbows have good armor, but volume of fire can drag them down for sure. So we do have a couple pinks, and I do have the Plague of Rust. So if I want to overcast Plague of Rust, let's say on top of a Jade Warrior, he'll have 30 armor, and I can focus them down. So front line's going to be blues. We have an Exalted Flamer. These guys are kind of cool, much like an Ancient Salamander against like dwarves. They have the same applications against Cathay. I can kind of like park it in the bushes, get some good shots. He doesn't have any cannons or long range shooting via crane gunners. He's really, really just using the terrain here heavily. Like this would be probably, if this were like a Warhammer 2 land battle, this would not be like legal in terms of tournaments. But the map is kind of like, maps in Warhammer 3 are kind of bad, so it's tricky to enforce such things because this is basically his deployment zone, so he has to deploy this way, right? So yeah, it's a tricky one. We got a bunch of Furies. On top of that, Screamers of Tzeentch against some of the armor like Cav, Jade Lancers, and I wanted to try out the Knights of Immolation. These guys are pretty meaty, and yeah, Cathay can struggle with armor, especially if I can shut down some of their other units here. Now, as far as his force go, it's going to be the stacking shotguns on top of the Peasant Spears. He is able to dodge that, and it looks like it's going to be Miao Yang. And what you do with Miao is you get the Talons of the Night, and you basically just stack that on top of Tzeentch shooting. So if they have like a blob of pinks or Exalted, you just pop that on them and you get some good value. So I do miss my first bombardment. My opponent able to cackle here, but from the bushes comes the Exalted Flamer. And this is why you don't stack the units. Getting punished pretty good. One shot from those guys does some really, really solid damage. On top of that, he's got Jades, crossbows, and a Fire Rain rocket here in the back. A second volley coming in. Beautiful stuff there. Just melting these stacked up units. But a really good Talons of the Night on top of my blues. So my front line's getting punished pretty badly, but so too is his. That's going to be hurting pretty bad. And now Concentrated Fire, another reason not to stack your units. If you stack them, the shooting is going to be more effective, right? Like I'm able to hit both these units for the... It's a 2-for-1 deal, baby. 2 for 1. So we melt those guys pretty hard. Now Fire Rain rockets shooting downtown. Blues are taking a lot of damage, but my backfield pressure is going well. Jade Lancers, being a ground-based cav unit, are not going to be getting the charge, and the Knights of Immolation have jumped in here with these Screamers of Tzeentch, and they're going to be tearing apart these Jade Lancers, which will really, really open up the backfield. Now in the front, Cathay's going to be advancing, but not before the Iron Hail Gunners get absolutely pounded. And Miao Ying's trying to catch my chicken, but my chicken is very swift. He's basically just flying around, dropping bombardment spells wherever he can. So dropping one right here on top of the Jade Warrior crossbows. He's able to dodge it though, but it does shut down the shooting for a moment, and you know, had he not been paying attention, could have been quite good. So pink shooting well. Blue's going to be engaging against the Peasant Spears. In the backfield, we do see the pink horrors of Tzeentch just shooting whatever they can, but Cathay is now advancing up with its Jades. Balance of power is actually pretty even. He's done some good damage melting my front line, but In the backfield, it's getting a little bit spicy. We are able to get the Knights of Immolation, who have not even had their shields broken, as well as the Screamers of Tzeentch, to take down the Fire Rain Rocket, which is pretty big, and Cathay can struggle at defending artillery pieces against Air Force. It's very, very tricky against all the demons for sure. But I would say that in Domination and in land battles, I think Cathay actually has an even matchup versus Tzeentch. I think they can trade okay, maybe a little bit Tzeentch favored in Domination, but in land battles, Cathay can do a lot of stuff, especially if they're like corner camping and using terrain to deny flanks and whatnot. Now, the Exalted Flamer got a little bit overextended, unfortunate for me, but I will be pulling this beast back in just a second. It looks like it's fighting Miao Ying. The Golden Hounds of Gehenna's going down, making Balthazar Gelt proud, as another Portal Glyph does come out. So Portal Glyph is the nice summon from the Lord of Change, and that will give me Furies. And that's one of the reasons why I really like them, as opposed to like the smaller characters, is Lord of Change are good fighters. They can fight the Dragon Twins with support, and are just really, really good at disrupting formations with their summons. Cathay continuing to push me back, though. Here you can see the pinks shooting up into the Jade Warriors up on the high ground, but they do, of course, have the shields, and formation attack is better now. It still has, like, some weird nuances to it, and the fact that we have this guy alive, too, is pretty huge. The Exalted Flamer is going to be one of my main tools, and I figured if it was, like, a massive Cathay infantry spam build, having, like, an Exalted Flamer would be super clutch. Bombardment going down to the back, we do have the Searing Doom, as it does nail those Jade Warriors, and it looks like those bad boys are broken. The Knights of Immolation, I think, have left. We still have the Chaos Fury summons over here doing some excellent work, as the chicken continues to fly, trying to retreat with the Knights of Immolation, as well as my chicken, to let the shields regenerate. I don't know what word I was thinking of, but regenerate here so we can get that glorious Protoss action. But I do decide to jump down to the ground, flank these Jade Warriors, and try and buy some time for the pinks here. But a really good Talons of the Night going to be coming in from my opponent. Beautiful stuff. He's going to be nailing these pinks, and that is a really, really solid one. I mean, he does sacrifice some Peasant Spearmen there, but the Dragon Emperor is willing to get a little bit wild sometimes, and that one certainly worked out. But the Doom Knights of Immolation, I did use their bombardment earlier. Unfortunately, I did miss it, but they've been doing pretty good, honestly. Having a single Doom Knight just running around as like a sweeper piece seems very valuable. And here we still have pinks and blues online, both of whom are fighting pretty effectively. And the Screamers of Tzeentch, I really like having one of them in this matchup. Feels like they're a pretty useful tool for taking down like Jade Lancers and all that sort of stuff. Even Peasant Horsemen are large. Of course, you're kind of missing out on the AP thing a little bit, but, you do what you can. So Chicken's just flying. His shield has regenerated, so the Protoss shields are back in business. Another bombardment going down, so these are, of course, crossbows. And Golden Hounds doesn't do a ton of damage, but I had been running into, like I said, a lot of people attempting to cheese the new missile mechanic, so that's why I was bringing so many bombardments on the Chicken. I wanted to be able to just spam them nonstop if somebody had, like, a corner blob or a box. I thought about Final Transmutation, but at the end of the day, I think, like, against a more standard style of missile stacking, the basic bombardment spells from the Lord Metal are going to be a little bit better. Now, here's a power combo here. Plague of Rust, Miao Ying down to 34, and the Knights of Immolation got to be charging in. The Mighty Champions of Tzeentch do surround the big dragon, and we got a scrap on our hands, and they're getting some pretty good damage. If we look at Miao Ying, you can see she's finally starting to take some work for the first time of the game, and the big KFC man's going to be jumping in there. Portal Glyph, my second one, coming down to try and shut down some of the missile pieces. And now, for the first time, we're slightly ahead in the balance of power as we do get a big concave of blue shooting in. And here you can see the missile stacking actually, like, helping me. There would have been slight obstruction. Like, I would say I probably got, like, 25% more shooting there because of the change. But nonetheless, Cathay, certainly was a little bit more all in on it there. But Plague of Rust and Sundered Armor going down, so she is down to 4 armor right now. But wait, where's that other Sundered Armor coming from? Do these guys sunder armor? I don't think they do, right? How did she get her armor sundered? Oh, it's probably because of the warp fire? Yeah, it must have been from the Exalted Flamer shooting up there. Or the pinks? I don't even know where that other one came from. Pretty wild stuff. Well, nonetheless, I'm going to take it. So Miao Ying is on the hunt. We are chasing her down. No way the big chicken's going to get caught. He's pretty swift. He does have 90 speed against her 80 speed, actually, so she's a little bit slower being a big angry dragon. Cathay is being pulled apart a little bit, chasing with their infantry as I split up my pinks on the other side, and the Exalted Flamer here just absolutely roasting any loose elements it can find. And honestly, this thing isn't like terrible in combat. It could probably finish off these Jades. As it gets a big flamethrower shot right there, those crossbows are going to be sent to the Shadow Realm. In the back, those Chaos Fury summons still doing an excellent job, and I believe the Doom Knights are still hunting Meow pretty effectively. You can see they've kind of char-pitted her a little bit, blocking her up. While the pinks were able to kind of fan out in 2 directions, so if you're being chased by one unit, it's always a good idea. Classic RTS tactic to just fan out in 2 directions, so they can't shut them both down. GG, well played. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Certainly fun. I mean, I do enjoy switching between land battles and domination. They both have their nuances, and of course, there's always a sweet spot in my heart for land battles. It's what we've been doing for years, but yeah, ultimately, guys, I'll have probably a podcast discussing this, but overall, I think that the changes in terms of the stacking units, I think it's more of a single player issue and more of a land battle issue to an extent, but it's a little bit more niche. It's not like a ubiquitous thing across the board where it just like ruins every matchup. It makes some matchups a little bit harder for Khorne for sure, but I think it's more of a single player cheese thing. Every player who tried it in the multiplayer tournament pretty much lost. It just allowed other players to punish the blobs a little bit. You could see it kind of illustrated here. Like, he stacked units. Look at the value, 0 and 5, right? We were able to just kind of shoot into them and also hit the spears at the same time. Bombardments are extremely punishing against it. And so yeah, there you go. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't know, they're just my opinions there. And I like the build. Thought it was good. Obviously, it might look like it's weak against armor, but with the Doom Knights running around, wow, a lot of value, 2,000 of them. You have the Exalted Flamer, you got the Big Chicken, and Plague of Rust if you need to focus down any important targets. But yeah, you had the crossbows, you had a lot of stuff, but we had the big Air Force to shut it down. We had the Furies and the Chicken and 2 Fury summons as well, so that was quite strong. Meow did good, 1,500, mostly fighting the Chicken, but as far as that, not much else in the Cathay army got crazy good value. Anyways, GG, well played. We'll see you guys next time. Take care of yourselves, and that is it for today.